I'm sure you've had a positive memory in the past. Maybe it was a past Christmas, one of your birthdays, maybe it was your childhood, getting a new video game and playing it for the first time, or just having fun with your friends and chilling with the homies when you're younger. And and we basically associate the past with this good feeling, and then we start wanting to and you start thinking, man, I wish I could be back in the past again. I wish I could be a kid. But what makes this past important? What makes it so nostalgic that we want to go back to it? First of all, we use the past, as something to learn from, whether it's, for example, if it's a business and they're trying to learn from things that they did wrong. Maybe if they did, excuse me, if they ran a marketing campaign wrong or some sort of sales campaign wrong, or if a person, made a drastic mistake in the relationship and they really upset their partner and now they have to learn from it because they don't want to do it again unless they want their partner to leave them. Or if it's something to run, or people use the past as something to run from. For example, if they want to avoid, or if they're trying to avoid a big mistake or big flaw that they have in their character, and they, instead of facing it and working on it and trying to fix it, they run from it and then play the blame game and point fingers. People can use the past as something to heal from. For example, if they had a breakup, and they were, they're extremely hurt by it, with, dealing with heartbreak, and they're basically using this experience to improve themselves, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. People can use the past to argue over. For example, if you're talking about sports and people are arguing who has the better stats, or maybe what country, or if you're talking like historically speaking, what country landed on the moon first, or what country won the space race. So it could be used as a historical sense. People can also use the past as something to obsess over. For example, one of the easiest ones, or one of the biggest ones, is if you're an NFL fan and one of your favorite teams won the Super Bowl, you're gonna obsess over that for a long time, especially if you saw that happen. And you're going to think of it very fondly as a result. People can use the past as an article of change. Maybe if they want something, if something nasty, very nasty happened in the past that they want to avoid, whether it's a community, a group of people, or a nation, and they just want to learn from that, then they can use it as an article of change. And lastly, they can use it as a way to commemorate the trials and tribulations that humanity has overcome over a certain span of time, whether it's years, decades, or centuries. But why do we long for the past? I mean, that's what the video is about, right? Now, while I don't have the answer for that, I do have a couple of possible explanations for why we do this. For starters, the past is associated with simpler times, usually referencing times in our childhood where we didn't have as many responsibilities and we could just have fun. And childhood video games generally get associated with this, where they're viewed as a source of fun and as a source of like a sense of a lack of responsibilities where we didn't have to worry about that much. And these responsibilities could be being married, having to spend time with your spouse. Maybe you want to, play Call of Duty or go on the video games and play with the boys, but you can't really do that because you're married and your wife wants you to do something, whatever it is. Or it could be paying for a mortgage, paying for bills, and just taking care of your family, which is not a bad thing. That's all I'm saying. But it takes the time that you would probably be using for, having fun or just kicking back and relaxing. Second, the past may have involved a time where your parents or your grandparents were alive. This is where it gets kind of dark, but where it creates a sense of nostalgia because you want them back. You want them to be alive again, but they're not, and they're not going to be. So they're not coming back. And so when you think of, for example, let's say you're 25 and you're thinking about when you were 12 and when your grandparents were alive and you're going out to some farm or not a farm, but went out to some location or some restaurant that you really liked, and you were just having a good old time with your grandparents, and you look back on those memories and like, man, that was a really good time. I had a lovely time there. I wish I could go back and relive that moment over again. And another one of why we long for the past, another explanation, could be that the past may have involved a time of peace and economic stability, not one where you're constantly thinking about, is World War III going to happen? And your job was secure. And again, you didn't have to worry about a giant war. I'd say my assertion for why we long for the past is that as humans, we despise change, repetitive work, and never-ending liabilities. And so our childhood is basically a near perfect depiction of this frame of mind, because our childhood is a time, for most people, it's a time where we never had to change our personality. We never had to alter our looks or our attitude or our habits, because we could just act how we wanted to. And there was largely no consequences for it, because it's like, okay, well, people were like, okay, whatever, he's a kid or she's a kid, and they're just like being kids, they're doing whatever they want. Disrespect wasn't something you had to worry about. Standing up for yourself wasn't something you really had to worry about. Don't get me wrong, there was bullying, and if you were bullied, you had to stand up for yourself. But it wasn't in the way where you had to worry about, okay, if I stand up for myself, am I going to go to jail for this? Am I going to, I can't escalate too much because I don't want to, you don't want people to start dying or be violently hurt or, all this other nasty stuff. And when you're a kid, you're just like, oh yeah, whatever. He's just doing, that guy's just doing whatever. He's just a little kid. I'm not going to worry about that. For example, when I was 10, I didn't have to worry about what, Jimmy down the street was doing. It's like, I don't care. It's like, he's doing his thing, I'm doing mine. If he's going to say something, I don't care. He's a kid. I'm a kid. I don't really care. And not only did we didn't have to worry about this sort of, it's just added responsibilities as well as added liabilities, because the way I think about it is the more you're responsible for, the more you can be faulted for certain things. Because, if the things you're responsible for go wrong, then you're at fault for it. And so, it's more things you have to worry about and take care of. And so as a kid, you had nearly all of the time in the world to basically play around and have fun with almost no responsibilities. Your responsibilities are probably like, okay, where am I going to, if I'm hanging out with Johnny today, what time do I have to be at Johnny's house? And what time should I tell my parents that I have to hang out at Johnny's house? Yeah. And so basically, to try and sum it all up, it's less responsibilities. The times were simpler. You didn't have to worry about war, so it was basically peaceful. We had good times. The economy was somewhat stable and things were pretty affordable. And your grandparents or parents were alive. And so this is why we think of the past so fondly and we long for the past. And so it's kind of, things, this is why, that shows like that 70s show and that 90s show kind of, what's the word? They kind of symbolize this sort of nostalgia because you look back on those decades, or because the people who are, 70s kids or 90s kids look back on those decades and they think, man, I wish I could go back to that time. Times just seemed more simpler then, according to them. But that's just my take on it. Anyways, if this resonated with any of you, appreciate it. Feel free to give me a like, or feel free to get this video like, comment, or subscribe to my channel. And I appreciate your time. Again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.